Hello, I'm the Media Wiz, because one art form wasn't enough. And say, did you hear that South Park came back earlier this month? Yes, 25 years later, the animated juggernaut with the construction paper animation and crude humor is still going. For a little bit of history, the creative duo behind this show is Trey Parker and Matt Stone, two men who met in school while they were growing up in Colorado. The two quickly bonded over their shared love of Monty Python and controversial humor. They started working together on indie films like Cannibal the Musical and Orgasmo, but the South Park bug began with the animated short they made in college that landed in the hands of a Fox executive named Brian Graydon. The short was the original Jesus vs. Frosty, which Graydon loved and shared around to as many people as he possibly could. People loved it, and he asked if they would be interested in doing another one that could also serve as a TV pilot. This led to the Spirit of Christmas, Jesus vs. Santa, which established the four main South Park boys of Stan, Kyle, Kenny, and Eric Cartman. Fox and MTV turned the show down, but Comedy Central picked it up, seeing how they needed new original content at the time. Since then, South Park and The Daily Show have become their longest-running shows that still bring them viewership to this day. Even with low viewership during certain seasons, it's still their most popular programming. After a popular first season, Matt and Trey went on to do other things because studio executives told them once they had a hit that big, they could just move on to other projects while other people took care of South Park for them, and the only thing they'd have to do is voice recording. So ever since then, they went on to do their band DVDA and star in movies like Basketball.
This is about being able to hold bad filmmakers responsible. This is just like when we got our money back for Basketball.
The second season is often regarded as one of the weakest points in the show's history, not just amongst fans, but between Trey and Matt as well. Unlike the first season and everything since season 3, they had no involvement with the writing sessions for season 2. A lot of people were starting to tune out, and the two creators said they were starting to lose passion in doing the show, thinking South Park was turning into just another over-marketed fad. Want an example of this? Look at the N64 and PlayStation game that I reviewed. They hated that game as well.
I was wondering how you guys felt about the games that came out before the Stick of Truth, because those kind of sucked.
Well, that's why we stopped making them, actually.
Yeah, the old Nintendo 64 games. Yeah, those were no good. And we had really nothing to do with it, and they just weren't good games. That's why we stopped.
Because a feature film was in their contract with Comedy Central, they decided that they would make a South Park movie as a finale to the show. All the while they were working on a third season. So if you're paying attention at home, South Park was an overnight success for Comedy Central, a Viacom-owned company. By the time they got to the third season, they wanted to end the show for good with a theatrical movie. But after the film's release, the show got even more popular and became the biggest thing on the network. Now, does anyone else think that this is the same thing that happened with SpongeBob and Nickelodeon? Food for thought. With the plot being thought up while messing around in a board meeting, involving the boys sneaking into an R-rated movie and this would start some kind of war between the US and Canada, the film was mostly meant to be a spoof on a lot of concerned parental groups that would go after things they didn't like or didn't understand, like a lot of people thought happened to South Park.
There's all these big myth about South Park that there's all of these Christian groups coming down on us and everyone's trying to shut us down when we were doing the TV show in the beginning, right? But that wasn't really true. No, everyone just wanted us to do more of it.
Along with the important issues of censorship in the MPAA, who Parker and Stone had previous run-ins with Orgasmo, as well as their next feature film, Team America, the film was a constant uphill battle between the staff and the studio system who, quote, thought they knew South Park more than they did, including them trying to make the movie PG-13 so it would be more marketable, making a Kid Rock tie-in music video, and even the damn title had to be changed because of the MPAA. For the longest time, the title was going to be South Park All Hell Breaks Loose, but they were told to change it because of the word hell. Because their standards for animated movies is different compared to movies like Hellraiser. They settled on the title Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and it was approved. But they tried to have that title changed 2 weeks before the movie was set to release because they finally figured out it was a double entendre for uncircumcised penis. With all of that out of the way, let's see how they originally planned to end South Park. This is South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The film begins with a musical number, Mountain Town, because yes, this film is also a musical. This piece introducing us to the small Colorado town of South Park and our four main boys, Stan Marsh, Kenny McCormick, Kyle Broflovski, as well as his adopted Canadian baby brother Ike, and lastly, Eric Cartman, as the boys prepare to see a movie version of their favorite Canadian comedy duo, Terrence and Phillip. But alas, they're not allowed to see the movie because it's rated R. What I really like about this intro is that it does a good job introducing us to the world and subverting expectations with this wholesome Disney-esque opening number, and then slowly easing the audience into the more crude humor. Something that another R-rated animated movie could have learned a thing or two from. Also, you gotta really love the little self-aware humor they have in this little exchange.
Ah, screw it. It probably isn't all that good anyway. Cartman, what are you talking about? You love Terrence and Phillip. Yeah, but the animation's all crappy.
I see what you did there. But after the boys pay a homeless guy to buy their tickets for them, they make it into the theater, surely predicting what a lot of kids did when this movie came out. Yeah, apparently there were tons of kids that would buy tickets for Wild Wild West because it also came out that summer, and they would just sneak into the theaters that were showing this movie instead. And here's where the true crude humor is unleashed, as Terrence and Phillip begin swearing up a storm. It even results in another musical number.
You're an Uncle Fucker, I must say.
You fucked your uncle yesterday.
Uncle Fucker, that's U-N-C-L-E. Fuck you, Uncle Fucker.
And naturally, the boys walk out of the theater with a brand new vernacular. They go out to brag about seeing the movie to their classmates, and we establish one of the many subplots. Stan longing after his crush Wendy, but it seems that she's got eyes for the new kid at school, Gregory. But no time for that. Flash forward to the next day, and it seems every kid in school has seen the movie. But they get in trouble with their newfound language once they're heard dropping the F-bomb in front of their teacher, Mr. Garrison.
You can't say fuck in school, you fucking fat ass.
Kyle.
Why the fuck not?
Eric.
Dude, you just said fuck again.
Stanley.
Who?
Kenny.
What's the big deal? It doesn't hurt anybody.
And of course, leave it to Cartman, of all people, to escalate things.
How would you like to go see the school counselor?
How would you like to suck my balls?
What did you say?
How would you like to suck my balls, Mr. Garrison?
After being sent to the school counselor, the boys' mothers are called in and leave it to Kyle's mom Sheila to begin a self-righteous crusade against potty mouths and toilet humor. Oh, Gup289 would be so proud.
Do you absolutely think it is necessary to spew out dirty language and have it bounce off a viewer's eardrums?
Little do our characters realize it might be a little too late, since it seems now every kid in America has seen the movie and is cursing like crazy. But it doesn't stop Miss Broflovsky from trying, as she gets into a debate with the Canadian Minister of Movies on the news.
But Mr. Minister, it isn't like this film is the first troublesome thing to come out of Canada. Let us not forget Bryan Adams.
No, the Canadian government has apologized for Bryan Adams on several occasions.
Considering how much of a dick Bryan Adams was for trying to sue music websites for simply listing negative reviews of his albums that he released years ago, I'd say that joke aged like fine wine. The kids are then sent to a sort of rehabilitation course with Mr. Mackey, who sings a song convincing them to use clean substitutes for their swears. And while it is a catchy song, in its little tributes to musicals like The Music Man, it's rendered ultimately pointless since the next scene shows the kids all gathering to see the movie in theaters again. In fact, they even acknowledge this kind of thing on the commentary for the movie.
Basically every song in the movie pushes the plot forward. The only one you can kind of make a case maybe kind of doesn't is It's Easy MK.
Yeah, that you don't need that song.
After the boys see the movie again, Kenny tries to recreate a trick in the movie where he sets a fart on fire. It works, and it results in the inevitable Kenny death for the movie, as he burns alive, gets buried under salt, mutilated at the hospital by a doctor played by a George Clooney cameo, and lastly his chest explodes when they replace his heart with a baked potato. Cue the quote.
Oh my god, they killed Kenny! You bastards!
Damn it! It never gets any easier!
So now that Kenny is dead, it's time for him to pass on to the next plane of existence. But it seems he's denied a bunch of big-breasted women in heaven, as he is dropped into hell for his bad behavior. Well, at least he gets to listen to some James Hetfield from Metallica fame as he falls. Back on Earth, Sheila rounds up the parents and their agenda is put into full force as she creates a concerned parent protest group called Mothers Against Canada. Hey look, they predicted those dumb Facebook pages. This movie really was ahead of its time. And it's here where the movie satire is now brought to the forefront. With the in-universe South Park movie, kids swearing, and their parents' reactions, this movie is clearly meant to be a meta-commentary on how a lot of people saw South Park at the time. The funny thing is, they did a similar plot to this in the Season 1 episode, Death, which introduced Terrence and Phillip into the show. The parents see what their kids are watching and begin a self-righteous protest instead of taking some real parental responsibility, and it's ultimately deemed pointless. But it never really comes across as lazy or rehashed here. If anything, it feels like they used that episode as a blueprint and expanded upon it for the film. And if you're going to do a movie based on a show with the intention of ending it like they did at the time, why not make it one big statement about the show itself? Add to that, the song Blame Canada is amazing. It perfectly represents the movie's themes about censorship and freedom of speech in a hilariously satirical way. The song was so beloved it was even nominated for a Best Song Oscar, and Robin Williams even went on to perform it that year. But they lost out to Phil Collins and the Tarzan soundtrack. And yes, this is why they dedicated a whole episode to mocking Phil Collins. Anyway, Terrence and Phillip go on Conan O'Brien, played by Data from Star Trek, but it turns out that it was all a front and they are soon apprehended by the MAC. Fun fact, this was the scene that Matt and Trey wanted to use when they were going to promote the movie on Conan O'Brien. Even Conan wanted to use the clip because he thought the entire scene was funny. But the studio wouldn't let them do that because of how the scene ends.
You loved our movie, Conan. We watched it together, remember? You laughed. What have I done?
With the duo being held prisoner and a discussion at the UN gone horribly wrong, the Canadians retaliate by bombing the Baldwin family.
Hey, Alec, do you know what sucks about being a Baldwin? No, what? Nothing! Yeah! You missed me!
You are worthless, Alec Barrett!
And so, with things now escalating quickly, it's made even worse as the US declares World War III with Canada. And of course, Sheila is leading the attack. Yeah, there's an easy World War III meme in there somewhere. Have fun with that in the comments. On the playground, the boys debate on what they could possibly do, but all Cartman can think about is how much of a bitch Kyle's mom is, and this leads to the Season 1 fan favorite song, Kyle's Mom's a Bitch. But this time they have a big band orchestral ending to it.
What? Fuck.
So after that, Cartman is turned into patient zero for this thing called the V-chip, based on a real-life piece of hardware that would be installed into televisions to try and filter out adult content. But here it serves as a shock collar type device that's triggered whenever Cartman swears. Also, the Doctor in this scene is played by Eric Idle. Considering what big Python fans that Trey and Matt were, this must have been really cool to them to get him for the movie.
It's just like a lie detector. You see, certain things happen to you when you swear, just like when you lie. The chip picks up on this and gives the subject a little prick.
His very brief cameo here is still better use of Eric Idle than his appearance in Shrek the Third. So the US Army begins recruiting soldiers, all the while bombing parts of Canada, and even taking Canadians from their homes and placing them into death camps. They even start burning Canadian media. And the MAC declare that the Canadian duo will be executed at the upcoming USO show. The boys try to get their moms to stop all of this, but they're not budging. So now, the boys decide that they must do what is right, through song, all the while asking one simple question that goes back to the original Spirit of Christmas short.
Now we've got to think here. Now let's see. What would Brian Boitano do?
And as the boys recount all these amazing and heroic feats from the famous figure skater, they decide that they'll create their own little resistant group with all the other kids in town, save Terrence and Phillip, and make everything right again. Back with Kenny in hell, he's being tortured by the Lord of all Darkness himself, Satan, along with his partner, Saddam Hussein, who apparently saw this movie before he died and liked it. Yeah, we may never get to know what Kim Jong-il thought of Team America, but apparently the charm of South Park even worked its way into the heart of Saddam Hussein. This is all very odd to me, considering they not only make him the main villain of the movie, but they also put him in a gay relationship with Satan. Only in South Park!
Is sex the only thing that matters to you?
I love you. Yeah, you like that, don't you, bitch?
Right. Satan then goes into some exposition about how once the blood of Terrence and Phillip is spilled in the upcoming war, it will result in the apocalypse. But it seems that Satan has bigger dreams and aspirations that his passive-aggressive partner just can't see. As we then get a song clearly lifted after songs from the Disney Renaissance with Up There, as Satan sings about how he just wants to live carefree up on Earth and live in peace. And it's funny that in this movie, with an almost 400 swear count, the song being sung by the freaking devil has little to no swearing in it. And to think, just a couple years later, the daughter of Satan would have her own I Want More Disney Princess-style song in the Has Been Hotel pilot.
Waiting to find a little bluebird.
I guess it runs in the family. Back on Earth, the boys assemble all the other kids in town for their La Resistance group. Mind you, they assemble them through an email that they send out after witnessing a German Scheisse porn video featuring Cartman's mom. And would you believe this was another thing, that they had something different planned until the MPAA made them change it? But what could they possibly have had to change it from?
The original scene in the movie when the kids got on the internet had to do with Cartman's mom a horse and them seeing that. And I'm sure you guys seen that. There's an internet thing that goes around that people have seen. That's, I mean, it's not even our idea. Like actually is on the internet. So we took it and we did this thing, and you never really saw the screen, and it was pretty short, and they said, you can't do that. So we went back and forth, and they wouldn't let us do it, so we put in this German video thing that I think is like much more depraved.
Anyway, the point is, the group is assembled, and not wanting Gregory to upstage him in front of Wendy, Stan volunteers himself and his friends to carry out their battle plan. Cue the Les Miserables style song calling for revolution. And out of all the songs that are in this movie, this is probably my personal favorite, just because they found a way to tie together every song and every subplot all in one. Stan and Kyle even acknowledge it.
Start this war. What the fuck are they fighting for? When did this song become a marathon?
Back in hell, as the conflict between Satan and Saddam gets worse, Kenny tells Satan that he doesn't need Saddam and that he needs to stand up for himself. But because Saddam has ulterior motives, he reassures Satan that he's not such a bad guy and that he can change his ways. And by all accounts, this probably shouldn't have worked, but apparently Satan is swayed by Saddam's breakdancing. So the two are heading up to Earth together. Before all hell can break loose, Stan, Kyle, and Cartman sneak into the USO show with the help of this French kid called the Mole. Their plan being that Mole will sneak in and help Terrence and Phillip escape, Cartman will disable the electric chairs, and Stan and Kyle will keep the crowd distracted. They do this by getting fan-favorite character Big Gay Al to perform a big Broadway-style musical number to entertain the troops. And we also see his dick. Because damn it, this movie was rated R and they were going to make it worth our while, I guess. Just as it seems that the plan is about to go off without a hitch, Cartman doesn't disable the power and Mole gets caught and attacked by some guard dogs, killing him in the process. But before Terrence and Phillip can be killed, the Canadians begin the attack, giving the boys enough time to free them. And notice, Cartman gets shocked as he tries to shut off the electric chairs. This causes the V-chip to short circuit, and now electricity flies outward instead of inward whenever he curses. Remember this, it comes back later, it's important. As Sheila and the military surround Terrence and Phillip, the kids show up and stand their ground in their defense.
Stand down, children. You can still see fart jokes on Nickelodeon.
Good job, Viacom. You were able to slip in a reference to another one of your channels. I'm so proud of you.
You keep going off and fighting all these causes, but I don't want to fight her. I want my mom.
You have spilled the blood of the innocent. Now begins 2 million years of darkness.
There you go. You just unleashed the end of the world. Hope you're proud.
Good job, Ms. Bloflowski. Thanks a lot.
Well said, Chef. Well said. And in that moment, Saddam then talks down to Satan and claims complete control over all of this. But he makes one fatal mistake when he calls Cartman fat. Yeah, you remember the V-chip short-circuiting? Well, now Cartman uses his foul mouth to go Super Saiyan and defeat Saddam Hussein.
Fuck, shit, cock, ass, titties, burner, bitch, mutt, pussy, cock, butthole, Barbara Streisand!
Satan finally stands up for himself and throws Saddam off of a cliff back into hell, where he's then impaled on a spike and killed. And to think, just a couple years later, Parker and Stone did another movie where a world-famous dictator was the main villain, and he got impaled.
Coincidence? I think not!
Grateful for Kenny's kindness earlier in the movie, Satan calls off the apocalypse and offers him a wish, as Kenny wishes that the world will go back to the way it was before the war, meaning that he'll still have to go back to hell. But he's willing to make that sacrifice. We even get a heartfelt goodbye where we finally see Kenny's face and hear his voice. Damn, and to think, we didn't even get that with the Ed, Edd and Eddy movie. We still didn't find out what was under Double D's hat. Here, this movie went the extra mile and showed Kenny's face. And he's apparently voiced by Beavis and Butthead King of the Hill creator Mike Judge.
Goodbye, you guys.
Oh god, can you imagine if they had Kenny talk and he just sounded like Beavis or Butthead? Oh my god, that would have been awesome. But it seems that all is okay with Kenny, as because of his sacrifice, he gets to go up to heaven. Let's end with a reprise of the opening song, and after all this time, we finally get to hear Isaac Hayes singing in this movie. And if you stay during the credits, you get a Michael McDonald song parodying cheesy slow ballads, and even a DVD cover of What Would Brian Boitano Do? A song that Trey and Matt once again had to fight the studio over because they wanted a Kid Rock cover of Kyle's Mom's a Bitch. But using their own money, Parker and Stone put together this song and the music video for it. And I'm only guessing out of spite, they aired it on MTV like, I don't know, once or twice maybe? That was South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and I really love this movie. The message about censorship is a very important one, and the fact that they mirrored how a lot of people perceived South Park at the time is a really wonderful example of Parker and Stone's satire at their best. They even revisited it in one of the few episodes from season 20 that I actually liked, where Kyle goes on to create his own MAC group with Millennials Against Canada, reflecting on the sort of current state of these kind of things. On top of that, the humor is great, the music is phenomenal, and the animation is pretty good despite being intentionally cheap. It says something that this movie has better animation than some of the really crappy animated movies I previously reviewed. Much like the SpongeBob movie, part of me wonders what it would have been like if this was how the show went out, but I am glad that they got their creative spark back after doing this movie and they kept the show going. And with all that I've learned about this movie while doing research for this review, this movie really was an uphill battle for them. The studio, and more importantly the MPAA, were constantly telling them what they thought was best and wanted them to do things that would have soured the final product. But Parker and Stone refused to budge and never caved in, saying they wanted to make the South Park movie they wanted to make. I personally think there's a lot of artistic integrity in that. Since then, the movie has gone on to be regarded as not just a great comedy, but one of the best movies ever made in a lot of circles. Even those who seem to hate the show seem to have a few nice things to say about this movie. Overall, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut is a really fantastic movie adaptation of a show that I really love. My hat goes off to the South Park crew for making this movie as great as it was, and I'm proud to have it as a part of my collection. Even despite how disconnected the back of the box looks to the front, and the fact that the menu screens look like this. I mean, come on. Even the UK DVD's release menu looks better than that. Anyway, point still stands. I really love this movie. And even if you don't like South Park, we've got plenty of other terrible television that we're going to be looking at next month. But until then, I'm the Media Whiz, because one art form wasn't enough.
Well, cause I'm a bitch, she's a big fat bitch, she's the biggest bitch in the whole wide world. She's a stupid bitch, and everyone's a bitch, she's a bitch to all the boys and girls. On Monday she's a bitch, on Tuesday she's a bitch, and Wednesday to Saturday she's a bitch. Then on Sunday just to be different, she's a super king, Kamehameha, bitch. Have you ever met my baby? Cause mom, she's the biggest bitch in the whole wide world. She's a mean old bitch, and she has stupid hair, she's a bitch, 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 she's a stupid bitch. What do you think this is, kid? TV Kitty Hour where we all sit around and lick Barney the dinosaur's fucking pussy? Huh?